What can you do when you disagree with the way your grandchild is being parented? So it could be your child and their partner or spouse, or it could be just the single parent of your grandchild, whether that's your child's, your adult child, or the person that your adult child had a baby with. So, what can you do? The first thing is you need to remember that you are not the parent, you are the grandparent. A parent has a right to raise their child the way that they see as correct. You had your chance. You have to step back and you have to have a different role in this child's life. And with your child being an adult, you have to have a different role to your child than when you did when your child was a minor, when you had a right to tell your child what you thought and for asking things to be a certain way. It was your house, it was your right to speak and say what was going on. But when your child is an adult, the relationship shifts and there has to be a respect for both parties. Your child needs to respect you as a adult, as a person who has thoughts and beliefs, and you have to respect your child as an adult who has beliefs and thoughts and a right to make their own choices. So you've got to keep that in mind. The second thing is you've got to really evaluate the seriousness of your concerns or your opinions. Is this over? They don't let the child have any sugar, and you want to give that child sweets because you're grandma and you want to bake cookies and you like to give the baby ice cream or the child ice cream and you are upset that you don't get to do that? Is it over a parenting style or discipline that you disagree with? Maybe it's something that is a new fad or something that is the opposite of how you raised your child. Maybe it is that it's a different religion or a different church, or maybe it's no religion. And so you've got to look at it. You've got to say, or is it worse? Is what you're upset about neglect, abuse, drug use around a child, smoking pot, or maybe it's harsh discipline. You've got to really kind of pinpoint it and recognize what is it. So the next thing is you've got to consider the fallout of speaking up. If you have always been a person who's been open and spoken your thoughts to your child, and you're used to doing that, you've still got to stop and think. This is a different situation. You have a grandchild that's involved. You have another parent of that grandchild, which could be the spouse, the partner of your child, and there could be a different reaction from that person. There could be an extreme reaction. There's a lot of grandparents who have been cut off from their children and grandchildren because of things they've done where they think, it wasn't that bad, and yet the reaction was that the kids didn't want to deal with it. So you got to be careful. You've got to recognize that maybe this other person that is your in-law is going to react strongly to you sharing your opinion. So you've got to consider, what is my relationship with both parents of this child? What kind of leeway is there for me speaking my truth or my opinion? Has there been a really strong reaction in the past? Well, then you got to be really, really careful. So you kind of got to count the cost and use wisdom in recognizing. Proverbs 26, 4 says uh, to confront a fool in their anger, or they're going to be wise in their own eyes. And then the next verse says, 26:5 says, don't confront a fool or you'll be just like them. So it's like you've got to have discernment and you've got to have wisdom as far as what you're going to do. So you've got to consider what would the fallout be? What is the possibility of having them get upset with you or just you harming the relationship? I mean, again, you don't have a right to speak anything, to tell them anything and everything that you think about how they parent this child. That is a boundary violation to do that. And you have to keep in mind that it might not be good, it might not be right. And again, it's how you say it also. It's like saying, oh, it's hard for me not to be able to give sugar to my grandchild, is different than I'm going to give sugar to my grandchild, or you're wrong to withhold sugar from your grandchild. Again, people that are doing things that are bad, like drugs or alcohol or something, they're going to be reactive. They're going to be in denial. They're going to say it's not a big deal. Or if they're maybe your child is parenting your grandchild the way the father did in your home or the way that the mother did, their mother or father. And then that's also harmful, that recognizing, oh my gosh, now they're doing the same thing that I tolerated or maybe I did to them. There's going to be a lot to consider. So the seriousness of what it is, and the relationship that you have with each of the parents, the mother and father of the child. So you also need to remember there's something different in relationship with your grandchild, and that is that you want to do whatever it is that you can do to one, again, the seriousness, if it's abuse, if it's something where a child is actually not being fed, not being taken care of, is being verbally, emotionally abused, physically abused, that's a different way. Some that the importance goes way up in terms of needing to say something, but even then, you have to be very careful because you do not want them to get angry with you and cut the relationship off with you to where you have no access to your grandchild. If the idea here is you're concerned for your grandchild, you want to preserve the relationship with your grandchild so that you can have the maximum influence on the situation and to where you can at least have a relationship with your grandchild where you can bring something good into that grandchild's life, and also so you can enjoy your grandchild. So the next thing is to consider carefully, who are you going to talk to about this? Are you going to mention it to your spouse if that's safe? There have been situations where the spouse would go and tell the child or the in-law to create problems, what you said. So you want to make sure that's rare, but you want to make sure you don't want to talk to your other child if that child is going to tell your other child what you think. So you got to be really careful. If you talk to your child, will that child tell their spouse? And then there'll be resentment and a reaction from the spouse that way. When you knew that it wasn't good to talk to the spouse, you got to know, like, who do I talk to? Do I talk to a counselor? That's a safe place to talk to your concerns. People have brought concerns to me about their grandchildren and what's going on. So that's a safe place to bring it. But you just, you got to be really careful. Now, when would you call like child protective services? Is when you know that there is legitimate abuse that needs to be reported. Know that the backlash could be severe with that, and also that child protective services doesn't always come in and make a uh, determination that the child is really in difficult situations. The idea of emotional and verbal abuse is sometimes hard to pinpoint, hard to prove. And children often, when they're under pressure from a parent, especially one that they know has a backlash, will recant what it was that they told you that happened and say that it didn't happen and lie to CPS. So you have to be really careful. You can consult an attorney, you can consult a therapist. Now, when you call CPS, it's supposed to be anonymous, but you've got to be really careful in recognizing that the child could assume that that's got to be you, especially if they know that you're not happy with things. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't ever call. It means that you should be careful to consider everything before you call and know that there's no other options. Now, can you tell your child that you're concerned? Absolutely. Careful how you word it. Don't accuse. Talk about yourself and your own feelings and your concerns about what's going on rather than accusing them of being right or wrong. Um, or I should say, accusing them of being wrong or abusive. You only use those words if you absolutely have to, and it's really bad. So there are, like I said, there are times that you have to interfere and say that you're not going to tolerate certain things, but that is know that you can stand up and prove that or that you have a good chance. But most of the time, it's not going to come to that. Most of the time, it is just concerns that you have. And it's very painful to watch your grandchildren suffering at all in situations that you know are not ideal. But you've got to recognize reality, the limits that you have of having an influence, and you've got to do whatever you can to preserve that influence. So if you decide you're going to say something, you have to consider again who you're going to talk to, pick the safest person that has a way to affect the situation, whether if that's your child and you know your child maybe shares your concerns about the other parent, or if your child and you have a good relationship and you can say, like, I'm sad. I see you responding to your son the way that your dad responded to you, or your mom responded to you. And do you remember how hurtful it was? Do you remember how you felt? I mean, if you can talk to your child directly or even the other person about your concerns without backlash, by all means, do it, choosing your words very carefully. And so this is reality. I mean, I wish I could say, like, you can say anything that you're concerned about, you can bring it up, but it will entirely depend upon your relationship with the grandchild's parents and the circumstances under which it is happening. So you can, again, choosing your words carefully, you can bring it up in a non-accusatory way where you own, like just everything I teach, you own the problem. I have a hard time seeing this. It's hard for me to watch it. I'm worried, like I did it differently. But even that is a little iffy if things are kind of tight or if the person is kind of, you know, you don't really know that person super well, or that there's going to be a reaction. So you just have to tread lightly, is what you need to do. You need wisdom, you need discretion, and you need to keep those principles in mind. And, it wouldn't hurt to run it by a uninvolved person, your friend who doesn't have contact with them, that won't tell anybody your concerns. You do not want it getting back to them. So hopefully this made sense. If you like this video and you want more videos along this line, or you need me to elaborate on any one thing that I talked about here, please feel free to send me an email. So, and I have to say, my 365-day devotion that has 365 devotions where you can read all about. This is where you get wisdom and you get the ability to discern what is right. Has an index that you can look in and look up whatever it is you're dealing with, and it'll give you tips and tools that are based on biblical truth. Very, very, very helpful for navigating difficult relationships with wisdom. So thank you for listening, and God bless you. Please let me know if there's anything else you would like me to do videos on. Thank you.